What's up, everyone? Welcome to another review, and welcome to the start of the Horror-thon. Gonna kick things off with a bang with Psycho 2, the direct sequel and follow-up to the Alfred Hitchcock original. Psycho 2 is directed by Richard Franklin, written from a script by Tom Holland, who Tom Holland had directed the first Child's Play film. Cinematography by Dean Cundey, who is famous for his work with John Carpenter, Steven Spielberg, and Robert Zemeckis, to name a quite a few. Pretty much the only three that you need to know. The movie stars Anthony Perkins, reprising his role as Norman Bates. Vera Miles returns to reprise her role as Lila Loomis. New additions are Meg Tilly as Lila Loomis' daughter Mary, Robert Loggia as Norman's psychiatrist and doctor, Dennis Franz as the character called Mr. Toomey, and that's it. And I got a couple other characters too, but those are the main actors in this thing. Psycho 2. General gist: this movie takes place 22 years after the original film. Norman has been diagnosed sane and is ready to re-enter society, but Lila Loomis has got a vendetta of her own, and she wants to get Norman Bates back in prison, back to being locked up. She don't like the fact that he was released after all the hurt he's caused. So, my general thoughts on Psycho 2 is that it's a really good movie, really good sequel. Anthony Perkins is just a powerhouse in this movie. He's fantastic. Every scene that he's in as Norman Bates, you just can't take your eyes off him. Norman Bates is already a multi-layered character, and only Anthony Perkins can pull it off without being so hammy with it, and he can do it in a way where you root for Norman and you feel pity for Norman. And that's just a testament to how good of and how talented of an actor Anthony Perkins really is. Vera Miles returning as Lila, just as good as she was in the first one. I think she's a little bit better here, because you really get to see that bitchy, vindictive side of Lila Loomis. Norman Bates is struggling to re-enter society and trying to be normal again and not have those urges. And Lila, at every chance she gets, is just trying to ruin this man's life and trying to drive him insane again. She's a real first-class bitch. I like it. Vera does a fantastic job, and it's a good progression of Lila Loomis, because I can buy Lila Loomis from the first movie acting like this 22 years later and still holding a grudge. Her sister was murdered, so I like all that stuff. Is good. The whole subplot of Mary, the daughter, and Norman forming a friendship and a bond is really interesting too, because Mary and Lila are working together to try and get Norman to realize, but Mary starts to kind of fall for Norman in a way, or at least starts to have a friendship with Norman in a way. And she starts to second guess her actions, because she sees that Norman is desperately trying to live a normal life and want to put all that nonsense that happened in the past. And yet Lila keeps pushing in. So that stuff is great. All that is really good stuff. That's where the movie's at a strong point. Of course, you have a nice little subplot with Norman against this guy Toomey, Dennis Franz. Dennis Franz was the acting manager while Norman was locked away. Norman find out that that Toomey had turned the motel into like an adult motel, as said in the film, and he did not like that at all. Norman ends up firing him, and Toomey, at every which way he goes, just threatens Norman, calling him a loony. And it gets to a really intense scene in a diner where they almost go to blows, and Norman looks at a knife, and Toomey once again just taunts him, like, "Pick it up, psycho, pick it up." It's good stuff. Really, really good stuff. The kills in this movie, not too many, but they work for me. Toomey's death was bound to happen. These random kids die in the fruit cellar. Just whatever. Well, one kid dies in the fruit cellar. So it's like, that's all done and good, and the special effects look great. This movie is very plot heavy. There are instances where it does tend to drag a lot. Like, the first kill does not come till literally 40 minutes into the movie. So the movie is very slow paced. It's very deliberate in its pace. It's a very plotting movie. And it's really, unless you have an appreciation for the first movie, you would think it's boring. But since I love the first Psycho movie, I think it's a fantastic film. I can appreciate the slow burn plotting of this movie, though again, this movie is kind of slow for its own good and to its detriment, but it is what it is. I think Tom Holland did a very good at structuring his story and giving me good characterizations with Norman, some good character interactions as well. Things that I don't like about this thing. There's this subplot where Norman is getting calls from his mother, a woman who's claiming to be his real mother. And it's revealed at the end that this character called Mrs. Spool, who worked at the restaurant that Norman was working in when he got released from prison, is in fact his real mother and was the one who was committing a lot of the killings. And to me, that just came out of left field. And I think it just felt really tacked on. And to me, it felt more of like you need to have a twist. I personally would have done something completely different and staying with the tone of the whole Mary and Lila trying to recommit Norman. I would have had Lila take people that she knows, like friends of hers, and I would have had her stage the killings as fake killings, as a way to have Norman completely go off the rails and go crazy. That's how I would have done it. And of course, I would have kept the whole ending too of Mary, of Mary. Of course, I would have kept the whole thing too of Mary attacking Norman at the end, because I think it works. Because the movie will still work the same. The only thing is that it succeeded in breaking Norman in a way. So I would have kept all that in. I just would have changed the whole like "I'm your real mother" thing, because you can tell that this movie came out in 1983. Empire had just came out, I think, the year before. So the whole "Luke, I'm your father" thing was happening. So Norman, I'm your real mother. So yeah, I could do without that. I really could do without that. And it does hurt the movie a little bit because I don't really care for that ending. And it really does come out of left field. And I think you would have got a lot more mileage if you legitimately would have just had Lila pretending to be mom and her staging all the killings as fake killings, making Norman believe that he really did commit all of them. I think the movie would have worked much better, and it would have worked a little bit better. Another criticism I got is Meg Tilly. To me, she was okay in her role, but there are a lot of scenes where you can tell she's really awkwardly and very clunkily delivering her lines. Though the chemistry she has with Anthony Perkins is pretty good, and when those two are exchanging dialogue with each other, it does have a natural flow in some scenes. But there are also a lot of scenes where it has an unnatural flow. So she's kind of a mixed bag performance-wise. I mean, she's not horrible or anything like that. I would have cast someone a little bit better. So, yeah, there's a lot more I could say about this film, but I'm not going to, because I think you should give it a watch. Especially if you like Psycho 1. Psycho 2 is definitely a good follow-up and a good continuation of that storyline. Again, Richard Franklin as a director does a fantastic job. I thought he got the best out of his action, got the best out of his actors. He has some really good shots. Dean Cundy's cinematography looks fantastic. The picture looks beautiful. The lighting looks fantastic. The set design, the fact that this entire movie was shot on the Universal backlot is fantastic. It looks fantastic. It looks great. The house looks better than ever in color, and the hotel looks fantastic. Everything, all the sets look great. And yeah, so yeah, I got. Yeah, very, except for like that story element, this movie was almost perfect. But because I didn't like that twist with the whole real mom angle, and I think I would have done something much more different, this movie at the end of the day is an 8 out of 10. And again, when this movie is focusing on Norman and all the other stuff, it's fantastic. When the whole mother angle starts, but once that ending happens, and that twist happens, it kind of takes away a little bit, and it's disappointing. This movie was really close to being a 9 or a 10 or a 10, but I gotta give it an 8 in good faith. So yeah. Anyway, if you have not seen Psycho 2, give it a watch. If you have seen Psycho 2, let me know what you think in the comment sections below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll check you back next time for more. Later.